I had a liver transplant and was, at one particular point, before I had the transplant, I was very close to death. And
teen star Shelley Fabares had everything. Joey Angel, her hit song, beat the Beatles on the charts. She was a star with Elvis in 3 movies, and then when it crashed in 1994, she fell through her on the floor, broke all of her left ribs. On the side, doctors found a hidden illness. She had no choice but to hurt her liver. To get a transplant for 22 months, she didn't know if she would live or die. What happened next made everything different. Shelley Fabares was born in 1944 on January 19. Santa Monica, California, where her dad lived from New Orleans, and her mom would later be told they had Alzheimer's in 1988, but the most important thing in Shell's, it wasn't her parents, it was her aunt. Nanette Fabares is a Broadway and TV actress. Had won 3 Tonys already. Shelley won Emmys before she even began. Shelley got inspiration from seeing her aunt do well. A front row seat to what a life and show. It might not look like business, but it was. It seemed like a dream. By age, Shelley was already modeling her. At age 3, her mother saw how smart she was and put her in 1947 for a picture. Shell's older, they called her sister Nanette, Smokey, also tried modeling but gave up. On the other hand, Shell had something interesting. She looked young for her age. That meant she could play more younger parts while other kids were getting old for the job. It gave her more time to stay in the spotlight. She made her when she was only 10 years old. It was 1954 when she made her TV debut. Showed up in Letter to Loretta. That a single episode set off a chain of events she showed up in over the next few years. In and Oakley, Captain Midnight, Fury, and the Colgate Theater was the next big thing. Chance and the producers showcase. Shelley got to work with Frank Paul Newman and Frank Sinatra when I was a kid. Wasn't common, and she also showed up in a Wuthering Heights in real life, showing she could deal with serious. By 1958, she played a major part in Zanette from Disney. Will be in 15 episodes. Shelley wasn't just another, she was no longer a child actor, she was becoming a. In 1955, well-known movie roles came next. She was in The Girl Rush, which was not given credit for, but it got her on a movie set. The next year, she played Susie Parker and she was only 12 years old, but Never Say Goodbye. Finally, her name was in the credits for that. She was also in The Bad in the same year. Still, Seed and Rock Pretty Baby without getting paid. She was in Gene Eagles as a teenage girl. Again, no credit. It kept happening in bits and pieces many times without being noticed, but each one taught her something. In 1958, she got into parts in The March Morning Star and things were getting better with Love in the Summer. But slowly, the break came in 1958. At age 14, Shelley got the part of It Was Mary Stone on The Donna Reed Show. Changed everything. She did from part-time jobs to full-time fame. The show had 191 episodes, and Shelley was there for most of them. All of a sudden was a teen idol, and she wasn't just acting any longer, she was turning into a cultural figure. Out why she was cast in the show. As usual, by the time she tried out, had already sung with Sinatra and did something on national TV that wasn't that a 14-year-old would do, but Shelley worked since then, which wasn't normal. She was 3 years old, and her Aunt Nanette was. She was already famous and knew the business. She was young on the inside, but she was ready for something more behind the scenes. What Shelley and Donna Reed did built a strong bond. It wasn't just, it was almost like family to Shelley's co-stars. Added that Donna was like a second mother. Donna helped her grow in more ways than one. Not as an actress, but as a person. Why don't you call me Donna, instead of Miss Reed? Shelley was shocked and went to Catholic school. She was used to getting dressed up. It took some time to get used to, but it paid off. Shelley Fabares wrote about how close they had become. I never meant to become a singer, but in 1961, the network had other ideas. They chose for her character to sing because she had to be on the show. But that's where she ended up anyway. I was scared, and in a recording booth with famous musicians all around her, she stood the Blossoms and Darlene Love next to each other, who were the real backup singers and guitarists. The drummer for Glenn Campbell, Hal Blaine, and background Carol Kay played behind her stories. Even back then Shelley could barely believe it or not. She later said, They knew she could sing. They put a lot of echo on her voice to hide her flaws, especially in the one line that is played over and over is, Johnny Angel, showed on the show in early 1962, but no one Shelley certainly didn't expect much. But a strange thing happened just weeks after that. On April 7, Johnny Angel it was number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Was number 1 for 15 weeks. Hit number 1 on the Cashbox chart in Canada and New Zealand. There was even one in the UK, where another singer had already covered it. Fabares' version got to number 41. It sold more than 1 million copies, got a gold disc from someone who didn't want to sing at all. She said her voice was warm, soft, and covered in echo. Some even said hers was better than the people because of how sweet it is and was pure. It didn't sound bold or sure of myself, but maybe that's what made it work. The record company rushed out another single in May in 1962, Johnny Loves Me came out. Put together by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil and told the same girl's story. It didn't finally win Johnny's heart. Reached the same heights, but they still climbed to number 21 on Billboard and 7 on the chart for adult contemporary music, and it got to number 24 in Canada. Shelley The Things We Did Last came after. Summer, which got to number 46. All of these songs were on her second album. With the same name that she didn't do. A lot of people lived at the time. For TV stars who became singers, most the looks were lip sync anyway but the sound stayed the same. Dreamy, the songs were soft and filled with echo. Meant for teens, and they worked with her. The music didn't make the charts for a long time, but fans still remember it who heard it at the time. Then the albums that Shelley had deals with Colpix's Records and had to put out full-length albums. Her first one was called Shelley, and by 1963, her third album came out. Teenage Triangle, but not from the top down. She was tired of her schedule and wanted to leave. These days, most shows make about 22 episodes. The Donna Reed Show filmed 39 episodes each season. Every single year for 5 years in a row, Shelley was working almost non-stop since he was 14 years old. 19 years old, she had to take classes on set to go to school. It was a grind like a factory, and it didn't leave much. Teenagers can be free after age 5. Shelley did something brave this season. They said they were leaving to go to college, but the truth was more the fact that she had been pushed into she didn't want a music career. She was tired, and it wasn't easy for her to leave. Did come back for 7 more episodes in late seasons, but the damage was already done. For 4 years she couldn't get work in Hollywood. Got off the hook. Shelley waited because she thought it was the right thing to do. Time would come again, and it did. When Shelley Fabares came to film Girl Enjoyable in 1965, she had only been married for 17 years. Lou was her new husband at the time. Adler, but it was Elvis who welcomed her to the set. She was tense at first, but as soon as they met, Shell said it felt like they'd changed. Been friends for a long time, but not in a love, but Elvis felt something click. He already knew her work from seeing it on. He knew her hit from the Donna Reed Show. It was the song Johnny Angel that had gone to number 1 in 1962. He made her feel at ease from the start there. Even the crew could see the chemistry. Saw him, critics would later say the sweet, innocent vibe worked great. She played next to Elvis in Girl Happy. Valerie Frank, and she is the daughter of a Chicago. Elvis was hired by the mob to watch over while she was on spring break in Fort Lauderdale. The movie was light and fun, but it wasn't just that. It was the start of a real relationship between them. Not love, but a friendship that would last 3 years and 3 movies. They got back together the next year in Spin Out, shot between February 21 and April 7 in 1966. Shelley played Cynthia Foxhue in A Spoiled Rich Girl whose dad owned. This time Elvis's racing company. Michael McCoy had 3 loves. Shelley Diane McBain is interested in and Ellen Wally. That might have made things awkward, but it didn't really happen. Carl Betts, who played Shell's dad, was cast as her on the Donna Reed Show. Father once more in Spin Out. That face helped calm things down on set. The fans liked the movie, which was part of how well did Elvis get along with all 3 women. Brought something different. And not one of them seemed to fade. Next to Elvis paid $750,000 for the movie plus 40% of the making. That much money showed just people knew how strong his name was. Still, one of his Memphis Mafia would say later that Shelley was the only co-star who could match the energy of and Margaret. That wasn't a small compliment. Was Elvis's favorite by 1967 when Clambake began filming. Things had Elvis's weight had gone up from 170 pounds to 200 pounds. He was mad about the in the right direction for his career. The scripts where the roles are becoming more predictable, which is bad. A studio boss told him to slim down. Cut down. That's when he began diet pills that would keep coming back to haunt him for years. On that set, Shelley was more than just a co-star. She listened and was a friend to them. They talked alone for hours in trailers and change rooms. He told her one day almost no one else knew about it. Priscilla that he was going to marry her. Bolio when he left the room and told I told her, they said, shocked. A lot of them didn't even know, but he trusted Shelley. Clambake turned into a turning point in Elvis's anger at the movie theater was on fire. He had been called James Dean a few times, but of important roles he had to play by then, Shelley's scripts were forgettable. Was more than just an actress next to him. She found someone who knew the real man, someone who saw the holes behind the feel-good. Even though they worked together a lot, they stayed together in their relationship. Only friends, but that wasn't always the case with Elvis and his co-stars. Colonel too often, Tom Parker was Elvis's manager. Pushed fake relationships to help sell ticket sales. Had gone well with and Margaret in Viva Las Vegas and gave her a good boost, a lot of fame. But Elvis and Shelley didn't play after the game. She said there he didn't believe friendship was real and honest. Have to sing with her, there wasn't any. You don't have to chase headlines if you just flirt. And that could be why he put so much faith in her. After many years, Shell thought about that time with happiness and sadness. She saw how fame had changed him. Hurt for what happened to him, she said. She knew he had done some bad things. But she also knew why he had left. The boy he was when he was 19 in Tupelo, Mississippi, to the biggest star in the world almost overnight. She thought about for a short time in the MGM cafeteria. Elvis looked in through the door and saw the hole. He was asked, what was it like? Be that boy and have that, she asked. Happen 100 times more? He never said. Had a chance to get the pressure, the being alone, the expectations, it all. Shelley Fabares had chipped away at him. Has been in show business since she was only 3 years old, but in the 1960s, everything stopped all of a sudden. I went to bed on Tuesday, she said one time. I got up after working since I was 3 years old. Wednesday morning and didn't work until 4 years. That wasn't just a dry spell. Was a real crisis in their career. The happy picture that had once made her well-known no longer fit with the sometimes people wanted something more in-depth. Vietnam politics that are more serious and pop culture was being shaped by rebellion. Shell's innocent and sweet screen being there didn't stand a chance. She said she didn't take risks, but afraid to start over, scared to do. I should have been more brave about something. She said that fear probably made her angry, lost her some big chances, but she eventually went back to work. She slowly came back with a guest. It wasn't a big part on the show, Manx part, but it was a step forward. After the shows she kept going on, like The Ghost and Mrs. Murdered, Daniel Boone and Hospital. Each one helped rebuild what she almost lost in 1968, right? She was in the middle of all this trouble. Starred in the movie A Time to Sing. The movie was with Hank Williams Jr., meant to help both of their careers, but Shelley played Amy, but it didn't work out. Carter and Hank gave Grady Dodd, a young farmer who gets into music against his uncle, wished the plot wouldn't happen. A lot of sense, and critics tore it apart. IMDb gave it a poor score of 5.4 out of 10. One reviewer said it was stupid planning, where all the characters made choices that didn't make sense, even though it was put together by Sam Katzman, who had a history of making good teen movies. This one bombed. It failed to impress both the people in the audience and the critics. During these years, Shelley played any part. She jumped from one guest spot to another, to someone else. She was seen in Lancer before and after Bracken's World and The Interns. Her part in Manx. She was in Long Cade's County Street. Loud Owen Marshall. I love American Style, but it doesn't matter how many parts she played in movies, she was still seen as Mary Stone the teen. That picture from the Donna Reed show. She was followed like a shadow by one person. Role came in 1974. She played on The Rockford Files. Jolene Hyland is married to a thief who stole more than $4 million from her person. Hired Jim Rockford to find down $750,000 worth of rare stamps that her husband owned. Bought. It was a part for adults with twists, lies and criminal plans. For Shelley used to be more than just a nice girl. She was tough, driven, and strong. Showed she could handle more grown-up things. She had parts, but Hollywood kept her in the box. By the early 1980s, Shell's job was things are still moving, but there's life going on behind the scenes. It changed even more, so she didn't file for bankruptcy, but there were signs of having trouble with money. In 1983, she played a part in the TV movie Memorial Day. That's where she met well-known actor Mike Frell from MASH. They fell in love and got married in 1984, not long after they bought a simple house in Sherman Oaks that they later named the house they stayed in for their honeymoon. Wasn't fancy, but Shelley Fab never claimed it as hers. She thought her life would change at a since she had been to a CBS convention in 1982, as she went through a hard divorce from Lou Adler. Mike Frell is also soon to be divorced from Judy. Frell was just another name that everyone knew at the event where they had met before in 1970, but it didn't mean anything back then. The last time something clicked, a light coffee changed into something more when Mike asked her to check out his photography. After a year, over a quiet meal at a Topanga Canyon restaurant that serves healthy food, Mike asked Shelley to marry him, and she said yes. They got married in a small church on August 21, 1984. Ceremony at her aunt's house. That aunt. The years that Nanette Fabre was an actress, it wasn't easy after that. Both had kids from past marriages, both were. They had to heal from old wounds, but they made it. 1989. Work slowly and quietly. Shelley got the part that would change her career, Christine Armstrong on Coach. It was almost a surprise when 200 women tried out, and many of them were ABC executives her age. Didn't think she was smart. They were a good fit, but producer Barry Kemp, when pushed, he thought Shelley was the sharp, funny, and strong all at the same time. Was right at first. Coach didn't draw a lot of attention, it only ranked 62nd. She joked that there were only 6 people watched, but then ABC put it on the air. After Roseanne, ratings went through the roof. Millions of people watched on TV. What did Shelley and Craig T. Nelson look like? Ideal match, but behind the scenes it wasn't always easy for Craig to act. Was unpredictable. Shelley liked order. One day after episode 11 there were too many takes, so they had a long talk. It took them 2 hours to clean her dressing room. Cleared the air. From that point on, dynamic changed. What was on the screen, chemistry between them became real. In the 100th episode of the show, they got married. Showed in May. After her success in 1993, Shelley won 2 nominations for Emmys in 1993 and 1994. They were the only ones of her. A job for an adult who had started at age 3, who had been in movies. The praise in the Donna Reed show. It was late, but it felt right to the Young Artist Foundation. Even gave her an award for her lifetime of work. She was no longer proud of the work she had done. But just when things were at their best in 1994, everything changed. She fell in her house through a hole. While renovations were going on in the fall, she broke every rib on her left side. Was 50 and the pain was unbearable. After months of work, she kept at it. Coach, everyone thought it at the time was only a terrible accident, but there was going to be something worse. After in the fall, her doctors did regular checks on her. The levels of liver enzymes were too high. No one knew why. There were more tests after that, more chaos. It took years before finally, doctors told her she had autoimmune hepatitis. Her body's defenses was hurting her liver. Medicines it helped for a while, but the damage was done. Continued, she felt tired all the time. She slept 20 hours a day some days. Mike, Shelley's husband, was scared. Stayed strong in public, but she broke down, and in early 1999, the hidden crisis broke out at home without before the warning. Shell had a huge esophageal bleed, blood vessels in her throat opened up, and she was rushed to Dr. Cedars-Sinai told her the worst. Her liver was failing, and medicine could help. No longer work, only a transplant could fix it, save her. In April 1999, when she was put on the list for transplants for the next 22 months, she had to wait for everything. Day wasn't certain every time her pager went off. She hoped it went off, but many times it was. Each false alarm was a mistake that broke her heart. She got even weaker as she waited for the call came just after midnight on October 23, 2000, after 22 long, hard months. Shelley Fabares is on the transplant list. Finally heard the words she had been. We finally got your liver, and it was Dr. John Verling on the phone for Shelley as well as her husband, actor Mike Farrell. The moment didn't seem real. They had been through several false alarms before. When the pager for the transplant went off each time it was the wrong number. It was scary at the time. Shelley, we really thought we might die of stress before we got the surgery. By the time the real call came, Shell was hurt when she got there. I could barely stay awake, and I wasn't hurting, she said. Later, but I was so tired-eyed. If you wake up thirsty, try to get up and get some water. Then tell yourself, no, I'm not that tired. I'm thirsty, and then go back to sleep. She and Mike knew how bad it was at this point. Had grown to more than half the people never get tired of waiting for liver transplants. One point in time, her health issues had began many years ago, and not in the way no one thought. Shelley would fall in 1994. Through her house's floor while it was being built, she broke all the ribs on her left side. During the routine, doctors did tests after the accident, saw something strange, and her liver scores were through the roof. Medicine couldn't figure out why. For years kept her steady even though her birth rates were still too high. So in early 1999 she experienced a scary esophageal bleed. She was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. It was the center that made the difference. They told her the bleed was from the medicine for liver failure wasn't enough.